Hello, welcome to what is the first workshop in the Art of Communication series. My name is Grace McBride, and I will be guiding you through four workshops together. These have all been designed in collaboration with Community Connect, and I'm really excited to dive in with you tonight and get the first one off the ground, rolling. But first, I'm just going to take you through a quick snapshot of what we'll be looking at together over the next 4 weeks. Give me 1 second and I will share my screen. So, number one, in today's lesson, we're going to be looking at building your brand story. So that means we're going to be looking at the power of storytelling, essentially, to craft a really compelling brand identity for your organization. The next workshop we'll be doing together is understanding your audiences. From there, we'll start to look at building content pillars. And in our last workshop together, we will look at how to measure the success of your communication efforts. So I'm really excited to dive in. Today, like I said, we're looking at the power of storytelling and how we can use classic storytelling principles to craft really compelling brand, a really compelling brand identity that really communicates your organization well. So let's dive in. All of this will become a lot more clear as we work through today's lesson. To start, I just want to acknowledge that I think we have a fairly serious problem on our hands. I think it's safe to say that if you are a small or local community organization, you might feel like you are being ignored a lot of the time. I've got some examples here, but maybe you feel like your funding grants are being rejected. Maybe your volunteer numbers are dwindling. Maybe you're struggling to get RSVPs to your events. Or, maybe you can relate to this feeling of trying to tell someone about your organization and the work you do. And instead of seeing their eyes light up with recognition and excitement about the incredible work that your organization does, what you get instead is that glaze over the eyes, and you can see people start to tune out when they don't really understand what it is that you or your organization do. Why do I think this happens? I think this happens because we're not communicating clearly. I like to say, this is a very famous saying, but if you confuse, you lose. We are bombarded with so much information every single day as humans in this modern world, from the notifications on our phone, emails, texts, Instagram messages, Facebook friend requests, all the way through to the conversations we have multiple times throughout the day. If you even just think about getting up in the morning and leaving your house and driving to your local cafe and thinking about all the different messages that you are being subjected to, from notifications on your phone through to the person you might run into on your way into the cafe, to the conversation you have with your barista, to getting back into the car and either hitting play on a podcast or turning the car on and the radio comes on with different advertising or hosts talking about current news affairs. Your brain is being bombarded with information at every second of the day. And because our brains are so bombarded with information, we can really only listen or put a post-it note on the things that are communicated to us really simply and really clearly. So that's why we're here together over the next 4 lessons to learn the art of clear communication. When we have confusing communication, it leads to all kinds of problems. So this is stuff we talked about just a few minutes ago. People don't understand what you do. The why of your work gets really confusing, really muddled, and it's really hard to get people to connect. That's that eyes glazing over moment we talked about before. Your message is spoken 1,000 different ways. And most importantly, word isn't spreading about what you do and how you help. On the other hand, clear communication really helps you build strong connections with the people that you help, your organization helps, and the people who can help you, your volunteers, your funders, your donors. Clear communication also ensures that your messages are heard and understood, and really importantly, acted upon. And clear communication really amplifies the impact of your organization. So, lots of talk about good communication, clear communication, and confusing communication and the result of both. But what do we actually mean by communication? Um, in a nutshell, when I say communication, what I mean is the way that you talk about your organization and its mission. And when I talk about communication channels, what I mean is all the different ways that you might reach people with your organization and its mission. So, flyers, emails, social media posts, booths at events, the conversations you have, the phone calls you might make, all of those are communication channels, and your communication is the messages that you are trying to communicate. Some ways that you might already be communicating, like I said, social media, the website that you might have for your organization, the events you might run, the emails you might send out, word of mouth, so the conversations you're having with supporters and community members, and printed materials like flyers and brochures and posters. So, something to consider before we jump into today's lesson is when you think about the impact, oh, sorry, rather, when you think about the conversations you have with the people in your local community, can your local community name the main problem that your organization solves? And is your message clear and simple? For most of us, it's really common to be sitting at around a 4 or 5 on this list. Maybe your community will absolutely understand the issue that your organization solves, but maybe they won't understand the how, the why, or the what. So your message is not clear and simple. So be honest when you consider these two questions. Have a serious think about where you might be landing. And we can check back in at the end of these 4 workshops together and see if you would answer these questions differently. So let's get into the guts of today's workshop. How do you communicate clearly? I think we start clear communication with a really strong and compelling brand story. So, what is a brand story? Well, a brand, first and foremost, is more than just a logo or the name of your organization. It's everything that goes into how people perceive your organization, the values you have, the promises you make. I've written it here, but I really do like to think of your organization's brand as its personality. So, everything that your organization says, how it looks, how it feels, the impression it leaves with people, all of that is forms part of your brand. And brand storytelling is sharing the narrative of your organization in a way that connects really emotionally with the people that you're trying to reach, in other words, your audience. I think this is really true that facts fade, but a good story sticks. Um, I like to, tell the story of I have a really beautiful couple who live next door to me. They're quite elderly and they've really been struggling with their physical and their mental health for a number of years. They don't have any family or really any friends or strong connections in the community. They only moved here a little while ago and they have been struggling. And a few months ago, I was out bringing the bins in when I ran into my neighbor, and she told me about this beautiful Christmas lunch that she and her partner, her husband, had been invited to by a local organization. And it was the first time, she said, that she and her husband had felt like themselves again in a really long time. And the way that her face lit up when she talked about how beautiful the meal was and the band and the singers that were there, and how it was the first time that she'd felt connected to our community. And it was the first time she'd seen the husband that she knew and recognized from her past come out again after what has been a really difficult time. Now, when I think about that organization now, I think about that story. I think about that morning standing there by the mailbox with my neighbor, feeling so grateful that an organization like that had been able to come in and support her and her husband in what's been a really difficult time. I don't remember how many people went along to that lunch, how many chicken breasts they might have had to order, how many people they've helped this year. All of those facts about that organization do not stick in my brain, but the story and the impact that the organization had on someone I care about, that sticks with me. So stories really do matter. They are how humans have always made sense of the world. And when they evoke us, when they evoke emotions or connect with us emotionally, we can instantly begin to relate to them, to your mission. So when we have a really compelling brand story, it not only makes your brand and your organization memorable, but it inspires action. People donate because they feel connected to what your organization does. Volunteers join because they believe in the cause, and stakeholders support because they see value. So always remember facts fade, but a good story sticks. Our goal today is to learn a framework called Story Brand. We're going to write your own brand story, and then we're going to consider how your brand story can improve your communication overall. So let's dive in. Firstly, the story brand framework is a really simple framework that takes classic storytelling principles to help you clarify your brand's message. Once you learn the framework, you can do this for all parts of your business or your organization. And we'll dive into that now. So, this is the story brand framework. This was created by a man called Don Miller, and I highly recommend checking out some of his resources. He has an excellent book, he has a heap of free resources online, and he also has some great courses. So this is his framework, but you might recognize this framework here in most classic movies, TV shows, books. This is a classic storytelling journey. So, the story brand framework goes like this. There is a character with a problem who meets a guide. The guide gives them a plan, calls them to action, and that action will either result in success for our character or failure. So, if you have ever seen the movie The Hunger Games, you will know that Katniss is our main character. She has a problem. She's had to volunteer to become a tribute in the upcoming Hunger Games. She meets a guide who is Haymitch, her sponsor, her tribute and guide. And the plan he gives her is you need to go out there and somehow win over sponsors who will help you win the games. So the call to action is go out and make Peter fall in love with you, really impress the sponsors watching on TV. And if you can do that successfully, you will either win the Hunger Games and survive, or you will die. Okay, so that's a really common way of thinking about the story brand framework is through like popular movies. Another example of this might be Finding Nemo. So Marlin, our dad clownfish, um, he's our main character. What's his problem? His son Nemo has been taken. He's missing. He meets a guide who is Dory, who gives him a plan to just keep swimming and tells him to follow um, the tide that I can't remember the name of now, um, and to get all the way to Sydney. And that will either result in success, Marlin is reunited with Nemo, or failure, uh-oh, he doesn't make it and he's never reunited with his son again. So can you start to see that really clear storytelling journey that we're working with here? So what we do now is we want to apply this same journey to your organization, your mission, what you do as an organization. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to pause here and have a little look at the example I've given you in your workbook to have a flick through. So, I've given you an example where there is a character who has a problem, who meets a guide and gives them a plan that calls them to action that will either result in success or failure. And just so we can go through it together while you're reading it through in your workbook, we have pulled together an example of a fictional organization that works to support parents of kids who are struggling with bullying at school. Okay, so the character in this case is the parent who is struggling to support their child through bullying and social disconnection. The problem And I'm just going to flick back so you can see it here. We like to identify the problem in three ways: the external problem that the character is facing, the internal problem, so the emotional problem that that character has, and the philosophical, the broader kind of meaning or moral reasoning that this character will have to grapple with this problem. Okay, so in this case, the external problem for this character, our parent, is that their child is being bullied or is struggling to make friends. The internal, emotional, mental problem that this parent is struggling with is that they feel hopeless, they might feel overwhelmed, and they feel unsure about how to support their child. And the philosophical um, problem that our character has is that really no family should ever have to experience this. No family should have to navigate bullying, and that every child deserves to feel safe and supported and connected. So, external, internal, and philosophical problems. The guide becomes your organization, the work that you do. So in this case, again, there's two ways that you can frame yourself as the guide. You can have an empathetic approach, and you can have an authoritative approach, oh, and or you can have both. So in this case, there's an empathetic framing of your organization as the guide, which is we are parents, educators, and counselors who understand what you're going through. They've been there before, they get it, and they're empathetically able to understand and to help. The authoritative frame is we've created a safe, supportive space with expert advice and proven strategies. So this is where you might list out the ways that you are really qualified. Um, what certifications you might have, the experience you can offer, the number of people you've helped before, versus empathetic, which is, hey, we've been there, I've been there, we get it, and we know how to help you. The plan, how you help, is the ways that you literally help your character, your hero. So in this case, you could join one of the free workshops or support groups. You could access expert resources and tailored strategies for your family, or you can come along to an event and watch your child regain confidence and build stronger connections. So these are some ways that your organization helps your main character. Then you have a call to action. And I want you to pay specific attention to the two types of call to actions I've got here. The first call to action is a direct call to action. That is the simple, basic, the number one thing that you want your main character, your hero, to ultimately take with you. So the main goal that we might have for our character is to join a workshop with this organization, okay? But sometimes our character might not be ready to take action with your organization yet. And so what we like to also offer is a transitional call to action, something that helps them take that first step, but maybe not come all the way through the door. They've unlocked it, but they haven't stepped through. So in this case, the transitional call to action is to download a free guide, how to support your child through bullying. Um, can you start to see the difference between joining a workshop and downloading a free guide? Downloading a free guide is a lot easier. So if someone has just come across your organization for the first time and they're not quite sure yet, you always want to offer them that transitional call to action that can still help them to take a step forward with your organization, but maybe not go all the way if they're not quite ready to yet. In the case of this organization, how does what does this result in, this call to action? It means that by taking action, by either joining a workshop or downloading a free guide, our main character, our parent with a struggling teen, would either have the success of feeling empowered with the right tools and community support to help their child through this experience, or what's at stake, without support, our main character, our parent, may continue to feel lost. Their child may continue to suffer emotionally and socially and academically. So these are the stakes that we're talking about. So just to step back to review, we have our character, our parent who is struggling with a child being bullied. The external problem is their child is being bullied. The internal problem is they feel overwhelmed, they feel lost, they feel helpless. They don't know who to turn to get help for their child. The philosophical problem they're experiencing is that no child should feel bullied and no family should have to experience this. They need a guide, our organization, who understands what they're going through because they've been there themselves. And authoritatively, their authority in the space is that they've brought together a whole range of experts to specifically support families in this situation. The plan that this organization gives these parents is a number of things. They can join workshops, they can access resources, and they can bring their teen or child along to an event. The call to action is to join a workshop, or if you're not quite ready to do that yet, why not download our free guide and learn a little bit more about us and step through our process. If you don't do that, you're going to continue to feel lost and alone. And if you do take action with us, then we can help you and your child overcome this challenging period. Okay. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can do this when we want to create a brand story that is more that rather than pushing this story to be about your character, the people that your organization helps, you might want to be telling a story about your organization to receive funding or support from either volunteers or donors. Okay. So for nonprofits who are trying to attract funding or support with their brand story, there's two ways that you can approach this. You can still tell the brand story that I just outlined, where the hero is someone who benefits from your mission, but you swap the action to focus on the donor or volunteer. So you would still say, our main character is a parent who is struggling because their child is suffering from bullying. Same problem, same plan that you offer, which is all these amazing workshops and events and training and resources for kids and their parents. But the action, the call to action is help us continue this incredible work. Donate now. Sign up to be a volunteer. So that's how you'd switch it at the call to action. Or you can choose to make the entire story about your donor, where the person, the main character in your story is maybe a volunteer who wants to give back to kids who are experiencing bullying, or a volunteer who wants to support parents through something that they went through themselves. Or if it's to a funder or a donor, it might be someone who wants to give back to the community and knows that bullying is a huge problem that needs to be overcome. So you can set up these brand stories to speak to the different types of communities or audiences that you need to speak to. Okay, so for now, I'm going to ask you to hit pause with me and go to your workbook and start to work through building out your own brand story. Good luck. Okay, welcome back. I hope that you were able to get something down on paper. Remember that this process can take time. So if you don't feel like you've got a really strong brand story yet, I'd really encourage you to keep at it. Bring your organization into this. Maybe go through this experience together and try and workshop this as a group and have fun with it. Okay. The next thing I want you to do is to go back into your workshop and follow those prompts to take your brand story and turn it into a really simple paragraph. And here's the example that you'll have in your workbook. We're going to take our brand story about our organization that supports parents of kids who are being bullied, and we've turned it into a simple paragraph. I'll read it out to you now. The headline is Helping Families Navigate Bullying and Build Connection. The body copy, so like when I say copy, that is all of the words we use to talk about our organization. Okay. As parents, nothing is harder than watching your child struggle with bullying or feel disconnected from their peers. At Community Group name, we're here to help. We're a grassroots group of parents, educators, and counselors in small town name who understand what you're going through. Together, we've created a safe, supportive space for families to learn, connect, and grow. Whether you're seeking advice, tools to support your child, or simply someone who understands, you're in the right place. Here's how we can help. One, join one of our free workshops or support groups for parents. Two, access expert resources and strategies tailored to your family needs. Three, watch your child regain confidence and feel connected. You're not alone in this journey. Let's work together to help your child thrive. Then we've got our two call to action buttons. We've got our direct one, which is join a workshop today, or we've got our transitional call to action, which is download our free guide, how to support your child through bullying. So again, I'm going to encourage you now to hit pause and have a crack at trying to turn your brand story into this one clear, simple paragraph. Okay. Now that we have done that, I'd love to invite you to take this one step further. What I'd like you to do now is to try and play with your brand story or your simple paragraph and try and turn it into a first person story. This is where I want you to imagine that you are your main character and I want you to talk about it in first person. So instead of nothing feels harder than seeing your child suffer feeling disconnected from their peers, it would become watching my child struggle with bullying is one of the hardest things I've ever faced. Okay, so can you see the difference there? Let's go through this first person story together. Watching my child struggle with bullying is one of the hardest things I've ever faced. I see the sadness in their eyes, the hesitation before school, the way they've withdrawn from things they used to love. I want to help, but I don't always know how. I feel lost, worried, and alone in this. So I want you to put yourself in your main character's shoes and enter into a bit of a creative space and try and imagine exactly how it is that your main character feels. And I want you to talk about the experience of going through that journey, that story brand framework in the same first person way. So again, with the problem, go through the external, the internal, and the philosophical. My child is being bullied or feels disconnected. I feel helpless, frustrated, and unsure how to fix it. And no child should feel the way my child does. Okay, so that's how we're gonna work on this first person version of this. So grab a blank piece of paper and or open up a document on your computer and try and have a crack now at getting into the space of this character's point of view and have a crack at writing this first person story. Hit pause and jump into it. Okay, that brings us to the end of our first workshop together. I've given you a lot to think about and a lot to do in this first workshop, but what's really exciting is that in our next workshop together, we're going to start to think a lot more carefully about the different audiences that your organization might be interacting with and how you can learn more about those audiences and start to play with building audience personas that help you make this brand story work even better. So don't worry if you haven't got a really solid brand story yet. The work we do over the next few workshops together will help you build on the start that you've got today. If you have any questions, please contact the Community Connect team and we will help you get started. We'll help you revise your brand story and get this going for you. Such a pleasure to work with you today, and I'll see you in our next workshop.